Hi, host Eric here, talking with famous people, and I went and visited my father and my mother this evening and sat and watched some of the political convention with them and listened to my dad express his thoughts on things in general. And he's always got interesting things to say. He said, one of the things he said to me was that this presidential election is the most critical in maybe his life or in the last set of elections for the soul of America. And so I told him at the time when he said that, I'm like, I'm going to make that a subject of Talking with Famous People episode. And he seemed to perk up at that and seemed to like the idea that I was going to do that, even though I'm 99% sure he has never watched any Talking with Famous People. So anyway, he seemed to like that idea and made sure I got the quote right. And so I did, and that's the quote. I'd like to start by opening the floor to anybody who has any ideas about the relative significance of this election versus other elections in our respective lifetimes.
It doesn't hold. I mean, I'm not huge on politics, but it won't. It doesn't hold much significance for me. Things will happen. Time will go on. I mean, one way or another, problems will continue to arise, and society, being people, will continue to solve them or not solve them. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a good. I'm the wrong person to answer this. So
I think that's a great answer, though. I think that's a great answer. You're saying, actually, these sort of political circuses and such, they don't constitute any sort of meaningful impact upon society, that things proceed as they do regardless, and ultimately the individual doesn't have any say about it, and so it's ridiculous to be affording it any attention at all. I think that's a perfectly reasonable conclusion to draw. My father's position explicitly, as he explained it more beyond that quote, was he's of the mindset that this upcoming administration is going to just determine a few Supreme Court justices who gets to be on the Supreme Court. So, and in his mind, that's the most important thing for the future of the country, is who's on the Supreme Court and how the Supreme Court is ruling. As a general rule, he thinks the Supreme Court should rule more libertarian, but he's not really a principalist like me. He's much more of a pragmatist and an ESTJ. He's an ESTJ. Mm-hmm. So that's one of his reasonings. That's one of his warrants for why he thinks this one is most critical. And the other one is regarding the treatment of NATO. Those are the two reasons why he thinks the most critical. He really dislikes Trump's position on NATO.
Well, I'm not entirely sure of Trump's position on NATO, so I can't really comment on that part. But.
Well, Trump's anti-NATO, and he's anti some of the small countries in NATO whom his thoughts on it are they're not contributing anything to NATO, they're just getting the benefits of our promised protection without actually giving us anything in return for it, and that's not cool, and we don't like that. My dad's position is that NATO is there to prevent authoritarian regimes from imposing themselves on little countries.
Gotcha.
That sounds like a great reason for small countries to be a part of NATO.
Right. I agree. But so that's one of the reasons why he thinks this is a critical election compared to others, is because he's concerned about the well-being of NATO and the effectiveness of that organization at stopping aggression from authoritarians, particularly Russia.
But at the same time, every election people are worried about stuff, and half the shit that the politicians say doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
That's absolutely true.
I'm just throwing that out.
You don't have to apologize for making statements. You could say, Eric, you're fucking stupid. That's totally wrong. And I'd sit there and go, fantastic. Take as oppositional position as you want. I agree with that position as a general rule. Like, okay, well, politicians say all kinds of shit, except actually, now that I think about it, I don't think they really say anything. I was watching that fucking convention with my parents. The only things they were saying were basically, Hillary's okay for us. She's a good Democrat. She's a lot better than the alternative and all the things you guys care about. Accept her as a Democratic candidate. Don't flip out about Bernie Sanders. That's all they were fucking saying.
Yeah, I watched a little bit today too, and yesterday.
But that doesn't really.
I mean, I just don't. Yeah, I mean, both conventions, politics in general, I mean, specifically in America, the party system, everything, I think, is just kind of absurd. Like, because you just get, like you just said, they just speak for, like, yes, you are all Democrats. We all share the same values and ideas. You are so identified with this ideology that, we can just say, like, hoorah, Democrats, this person will represent all of you. Give her power.
Well, I want to stress that that's not my political message as I move forward into running for president eventually. My political message is I don't represent all of you. If you are representing, if you believe in policies that are wrong and produce bad outcomes and violate principles or violate principles, the violating principles being the more important of the two issues, then I'm in direct opposition to your positions. But I still think you should vote for me, and here's why. That's my approach. I'm not going to fucking lie to people like that. I'm not going to try to manipulate them in that fashion. Tell everybody the goddamn motherfucking truth. That's my position on the matter. But the thing is, I think my dad's got a point regarding the Supreme Court, right? Like, if in fact we have several Supreme Court justices coming into retirement/death during the next 8 years, then it would seem to be more important than if we didn't. Did anybody want to dispute that notion?
I agree. I mean, they vote on the laws, or but I don't know.
Mega Bro?
In the end,
Is the
They
Supreme
need to
Court?
stop.
Go ahead, Mega Bro.
They need to stop ruling that corporations are people. For one thing.
They didn't actually rule that. That's a misunderstanding of the ruling that was about the political speech and donations. That wasn't an issue regarding corporations. It didn't rule that. In fact, it ruled that they can be treated differently, but they can be treated differently regarding their expressive rights as they pertain to anonymity, not as they pertain to quantity. Citizens United is often misunderstood and misrepresented in the media as to what they ruled. They ruled a split on the issue, basically. So,
I think the changing of the judges would affect, of course, like they make the laws, they're voting on big things, but at the same time, the culture, the society, the people, that especially with just so much of the social changes that have been happening lately, and just kind of the social, I guess you could call it, revolution that's been taking place, I would say, in our culture or
what are
in other cultures
examples
around the
of
world.
this? What
I don't
examples?
think.
What are things that fit into this paradigm you're talking
just
about?
with everything, like LGBT rights, like just the
Okay.
general social.
Civil liberties shit.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know. I just no matter what judges get in there, I can't see too much, like too horrible of a thing happening, because if they voted on something so radical that was against, they just can't get away with that in this country. Like maybe smaller country, you can just you can screw the people over. You can. I don't know. I just don't see.
Well,
Our system cares too much about surviving.
but
If this system, the government wants to survive, they have to. They have to cater to the people somewhat. I mean, they can't go too radically against the people, against
I more or less
culture
agree with
norms.
you. I more or less agree with you, and you can see how the recent hubbub about the police violence is changing people's perspectives on how law enforcement is treated, right? What's interesting is, and what I would love to actually see happen rather than just be sort of buried, is I want the news to show more of those videos, or I would like to see more stuff about Muslim people throwing LGBT community members off of roofs in those places where they do that, so that we can help to inform people's thinking about Islam just as we are informing people's thinking about police brutality, you know?
Yes, no, I agree. But then that comes down to the news, the media, and the media is also aligned with these political parties, and then so they carry their agenda into the spreading of media and of news, and
Well,
it
I
just
mean,
goes on
a
and
bunch
on
of
and on.
individuals. No, but see, here's the deal. A bunch of individuals each carry their own agenda into the news into the media. Like I'm doing right now. I'm carrying my agenda into this. I'm expressing it, and sometimes I'm expressing it well
Okay, I'm
in a
spe-
way. You know, I understand what you're
I'm sorry,
saying.
I
They're
was
talking about media
big companies.
elites, right?
I'm talking about the huge companies, Fox, you know.
Nobody's disputing those companies have agendas. My point is, in a fairly democratized media landscape, I don't think that's a reason to condemn their perspectives just because they're big media perspectives, provided other perspectives have equal opportunity to access the market, which I think they have sufficient opportunity in the current setup to do so.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm not criticizing. I'm not saying I don't think they should. They don't have a right to, you know, tell the news how they see it or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. Do big companies like Fox specifically absolutely squash and try to obliterate smaller up and coming news groups that try to speak against them or speak an opinion that's they do that. Russell Brand is a great example. He had a thing going on YouTube, The Truths, where Fox, Russell Brand specifically was talking about issues and had opinions, but Fox tries to obliterate his character. They use his character against him, to where basically people aren't listening to Russell Brand's words anymore. They're just hearing Fox's constant attacks on his character instead of his.
But here's the deal:
information.
to the extent that those arguments are being put into the public marketplace of ideas, then those arguments are losing, and the people who are making them are being embarrassed. So they have to go and make those arguments in isolation to people who refuse to actually engage the ideas with any other people. Their opinions are therefore irrelevant. If their opinions won't withstand scrutiny in the marketplace of ideas, they're weak and pointless. They won't have any impact long term. Bring your bad ideas here. Bring your bad ideas to me. I don't care what the fuck they are. Argue them as passionately as you want. You want to attack me? Bring it here. Attack me. Tell me what's wrong with me. Why I'm a bad person, and be prepared to answer.
Oh, I completely agree with that. Everything you just said.
Yeah, I know. I'm not actually directing it at you, UB. I'm playing a little character called Meow Guy. You know, I don't know. I'm working on being a little more graceful about that. Okay, so I said that was going to be about 10 minutes. It actually turned out to be 13, 16. Not too bad. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you all for participating. And let's try to switch over to cognitive functions where I don't get all worked up and we have some more pleasant style videos.